Hello, welcome, happy Thursday. Bit disheveled. It's not quite my normal look, but hair's getting a little long, getting a little shaggy. So yeah, gonna be trimming up soon. But welcome to the Calloused podcast. Um, this beginning welcoming part's gonna be a little bit longer than normal because I'm trying something different, and so I have or am attempting whatever, putting this up on TikTok. Little apprehensive doing it. I'm kind of nervous just because I've been doing this for a year and hadn't utilized the TikTok format for podcasting. Not exactly any real reason why. Just wanted to, I guess, learn and get familiar with other things before I attempted adding something else to the plate. But at the same time, I posted my other podcast, because I've got a couple podcasts, to its actual page, and it has gotten quite a few views, and so it's like slightly intimidating compared to what I normally get, but it's a good thing. It's positive. It's growth. That being said, what Calloused Hands is a biblical Bible study podcast. We're going to be, discussing the Bible. So if you want to go back and listen to previous episodes, you can do so on YouTube. You can do so on Spotify and Apple. And we are happy to have you here. Any questions, I will do my best to answer. Everything that, my focus, I guess, not everything, I guess, because every once in a while, people have opinions and they chime them out. And I can't say that I'm any different because I'm human. But what the aim is to keep it scriptural, to keep it Bible focused. So there might be some opinions, but that my opinions should never get in the way of the Bible. So if you're new here, just know that my opinions should never get in the way of the Bible. If I say something that is not biblical, I will correct it. I will, back up. Yep. That's I messed up. That's on me. That being said, why don't we just go ahead and dive into today's topic? So we're starting something this season 2. We've already gotten a couple episodes under our belt for season 2, but what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing character studies. So a character study is basically, I want to define it and then we'll get into our first one. So a character study, we're looking at a typical, not a typical, but one person, really focusing on that one person. Other people will obviously be involved because we're looking at accounts of something that happened. And so other people will be involved, but we're going to be examining and picking apart, in a sense, one person. And I started thinking about it, and so what's going to end up happening is this first one that we do, or first couple that we do, it's actually going to be very layered, because they all intertwine. And I really wanted to look at each one's individual role in these events that we're going to be looking at, as well as each one's collective part in what all happens. And so to kind of do that, it's like I said, it's going to be layered. We're going to end up stacking on top of each other with different, with different studies. So today we're going to be focusing on Samuel, his birth, and how he gets to being a prophet, and basically right before he meets Saul. That's the goal for today. And then next week we will be introduced to Saul. We'll see how that goes. And then we're going to kind of layer it from there. And eventually, if you know the story of all of this, we're going to get to David, and we're going to examine David. We're going to examine David and Saul's relationship, including Saul's son Jonathan. And so we're going to be layering it up quite a bit. This is going to be a fun study. We're going to be, like I said, really focusing on these people. And I'm going to be doing a lot of learning and growing with you during this. I am very familiar with the story. Am I an expert? In no way, no. I'm just a guy with a regular job who loves God's Word, who enjoys studying and teaching, and just decided to one day make a podcast in an attempt to help spread God's word in certain ways that I can't necessarily reach out mission trip wise. I'm more comfortable for one, but we can dive into all of that some other time. I really want to get into our lesson. So one of my goals, if you're new, I'm talking in a way of like talking to people for the first time, just because I'm in hopes that I do get to talk to some people for the first time through this. Now, some of you that come to my TikTok channel, like, or subscribe or whatever, or just pop in to watch my cooking videos and stuff. I love doing the cooking videos. The cooking videos aren't stopping. These are just in addition, because not only am I a cook, I write books, which I'm actually getting ready to start a really cool writing project that I'm super excited about, and I podcast. So they all intertwine, and that was the whole idea behind the Justin's Stories page anyways, was like for me to just have fun and post about whatever I wanted. And then like this past year, I just really focused on cooking, and I'm not focusing on cooking. I'm actually even upping my cooking game more, so I'm very excited about that. But I wanted to take advantage of the TikTok format while I still have it. But, it's the same for the YouTube page. It's the same. I guess it's not the same for the podcast, because each podcast has its own specific channel. I don't have a master feed. Nor do I think I would want a master feed, just because it would get so muddled with everything. Now, obviously, I keep God in everything I do, but I just don't see a point in a master feed. Now, that being said, I do have another podcast that we can, if you want to know about it, just message me or like comment, whatever, and I can tell you where to find it if you haven't found it before. I really like, let's begin. So we're going to go over to 1 Samuel. So all right. We're going to start at the very beginning of the chapter. Probably going to do a fair amount of reading before I even stop, just because we're going to look at like the beginning of Samuel's life, and then we can kind of go and comment from there. So we're going to go to 1 Samuel 1:19. That's where we're going to start, because that's where Samuel was born to Hannah. So starting off at 19. Then they arose early in the morning and worshipped before the Lord, and returned again to their house in Ramah. And Elkanah had relations with Hannah his wife, and the Lord remembered her. It came about in due time after Hannah had conceived that she gave birth to a son, and she named him Samuel, saying, because I have asked him of the Lord. So Hannah actually got to have a conversation with God and asked for a son. And so she gets her son. Let's continue on. Then the man Elkanah went up with all his household to offer to the Lord the yearly sacrifice and pay his vow. But Hannah did not go up, for she said to her husband, I will not go up until the child is weaned, and then I will bring him, that he may appear before the Lord and stay there forever. Elkanah, her husband, said to her, do what seems best to you. Remain until you have weaned him. Only may the Lord confirm his word. So the woman remained and nursed her son until she weaned him. Now when she had weaned him, she took him up with her with a 3-year-old bull, 1 ephah of flour, and a jug of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord in Shiloh, although the child was young. Then they slaughtered the bull and brought the boy to Eli. She said, O my Lord, as your soul lives, my Lord, I am the woman who stood here beside you praying to the Lord. For this boy I prayed, and the Lord has given me my petition, which I asked of him. So I have also dedicated him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he is dedicated to the Lord, and he worshipped the Lord there. So we're going to skip ahead a little bit to kind of like get some more context as to like what's going on in this particular story. To get that, we got to kind of look at Eli a little bit, who is a prophet who ends up training up Samuel. So we're also like going to be kind of examining Eli a little bit just because he's there. This is more, I guess, like I wanted it to be a character study, but I guess it's going to end up being more like an overall examination of the entire story of like Jerusalem at the time, because of like we're going to be examining two of the kings. We're going to be examining the prophets who had a very high esteemed role in Jerusalem or Judea at the time. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and go over to 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 12 is where we're going to start. Now the sons of Eli were worthless men. They did not know the Lord. And the custom of the priests with the people, when any man was offering a sacrifice, the priest's servants would come while the meat was boiling with a 3-pronged fork in his hand. Then he would thrust it into the pan or kettle or cauldron or pot. All that the fork brought up, the priest would take for himself. Thus they did in Shiloh to all the Israelites who came there. Also before they burned the fat, the priest's servants would come and say to the man who was sacrificing, "Give the priest meat for roasting, as he will not take boiled meat from you, only raw." If the man said to him, "They must surely burn the fat first, and then take as much as you desire," then he would say, "No, but you shall give it to me now, and if not, I will take it by force." Thus the sin of the young men was very great before the Lord, for the men despised the offering of the Lord. So they weren't doing it correctly, plain and simple. And the interesting thing here is Eli is a very righteous man. He is a prophet among prophets, I guess you could say. He checked like as many boxes as a person can. He was very faithful to the Lord. He was the guy, right? And so perfect guy for like to bring Samuel up to be like the next prophet after Eli. So we're gonna pick back up in 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 18. Now Samuel was ministering before the Lord as a boy wearing a linen ephod. And his mother would make him a little robe and bring it to him from year to year when she would come up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifice. Then Eli would bless Elkanah and his wife and say, "May the Lord give you children from this woman in place of the one she dedicated to the Lord." And they went to their own home. The Lord visited Hannah, and she conceived and gave birth to 3 sons and 2 daughters. And the boy Samuel grew before the Lord. So we're getting to see like a young Samuel who's being taught by Eli how to do things the right way. Now, ephod is a robe that priests would wear whenever they would go into communication with God. And so we see that Samuel is wearing it. So he would have been in communication with God, to sum that up. But it was a Jewish thing. It mainly pertained to like priests / prophets. However, whenever we get into the story, the character study or whatever you want to call it, of David, we're going to see that he also wears one. Kind of a spoiler alert there for you, and we can go into more depth on that later. I want to lay some really good groundwork with Samuel to get us ready to talk Saul next week. So we're going to move on to chapter 3, because the last bit of the last several verses of chapter 2 of 1 Samuel is focused towards Eli's sons, which we kind of gave you a little bit of that. So we could give you more, but again, this is more particularly about Samuel at this time. But I wanted to show you that here's this righteous man, and his sons decided to disobey God and go about and do their own thing. So now we're going to start at 1 Samuel 3, verse 1. Now the boy Samuel was ministering to the Lord before Eli. And Word from the Lord was rare in those days. Visions were infrequent. It happened at that time as Eli was lying down in his place. Now his eyesight had begun to grow dim, and he could not see well. And the lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord where the ark of God was. That the Lord called Samuel, and he said, "Here I am." Then he ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." But he said, "I did not call. Lie down again." So he went and lay down. The Lord called yet again, "Samuel." So Samuel arose and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." But he answered, "I did not call, my son. Lie down again." Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, nor had the word of the Lord yet been revealed to him. So we saw the ephod, which, like I said, is usually worn in communication. In this particular case, God was not really communicating very much to the priests, to Samuel and Eli, or however you want to say it. Picking up in verse 8. So the Lord called Samuel again for the third time, and he rose and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called." Then Eli discerned that the Lord was calling the boy. And Eli said to Samuel, "Go, lie down, and it shall be, if he calls you, that you shall say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" So Samuel went and lay down in his place. Then the Lord came and stood and called, as at other times, "Samuel, Samuel." And Samuel said, "Speak, for your servant is listening." The Lord said to Samuel, "Behold, I am about to do a thing in Israel at which both ears of everyone who hears it will tingle." I want to stop there for a minute, because, like, looking at, okay, first off, he's a kid. And secondly, how often, like, whenever you're, like, super sleepy, you yourself can't quite tell where something's coming from, like a noise or a sound. So you get up and you, like, look around, like a bang or whatever. We actually had this happen here recently in the area where I live, where there was a really loud boom, and it woke me up because I thought something, like, fell in the house. And so I went and I checked my son. I went to the kitchen to make sure something, like, didn't fall off of the fridge or out of a cabinet or something. And so I looked all over the house to see what had happened. Come to find out, there was ice, like, in the ground, like deep in the ground, that had expanded. And whenever it expanded, it did like an ice quake. And so I couldn't find anything, so everything was fine. So I was like, okay, it had to have happened outside. I can't see anything, so everything's fine. I'm going to go back to bed. And then I found out it's the ice quake. Samuel, Eli keeps calling me. And, whenever somebody's trying to talk to you while you're trying to sleep, it can be hard. It can be very difficult to, like, distinguish whose voice it is. There's times, even while I'm fully awake, somebody will call me and, like, my phone will be off somewhere else, but I'll have a headset on. And used to not have the watch. The watch totally changes everything nowadays, because I can do that and see who's calling. But before the watch, I'd have to hit the button and, "Hello?" Okay, yeah, and even after, like, a couple of sentences, sometimes I couldn't discern whose voice it was. And so, like, Eli's getting the whole, what is going on? Why won't this kid stay in bed? And so it's a whole back and forth thing. And then, like, Eli finally gets it on round 3. And I think it's funny that we get to that point where, like, Eli's getting it, and so now Samuel's finally getting to actually have real communication with God. Just some fun little tidbits. Picking up in 12. "In that day I will carry out against Eli all that I have spoken concerning his house from beginning to end. For I have told him that I am about to judge his house forever for the iniquity which he knew, because his sons brought a curse on themselves, and he did not rebuke them. Therefore I have sworn to the house of Eli that the iniquity of Eli's house shall not be atoned for by sacrifice or offering forever." So Samuel lay down until morning. Then he opened the doors of the house of the Lord, but Samuel was afraid to tell the vision to Eli. Can you imagine being in the shoes of Samuel, knowing that your leader, your your teacher, your master, is in trouble because of his son's doings, and he didn't handle it properly, and so now he's getting fired in a sense. And so that puts a lot on Samuel at this point. And well, what do I do? And like, one would think that, okay, surely Eli's going to ask, right? Well, let's find out. Then Eli called Samuel and said, "Samuel, my son." And he said, "Here I am." He said, "What is the word that he spoke to you? Please do not hide it from me. May God do so to you, and more also, if you hide anything from me of all the words that he spoke to you." So bringing God into this, like, may you be punished if you don't tell me all of what's going on. That's kind of heavy on. It's kind of heavy on a young Samuel, isn't it? I mean, that's a lot of weight. That's pretty tough. So Samuel told him everything and hid nothing from him. And he said, "It is the Lord. Let him do what seems good to him." Thus Samuel grew, and the Lord was with him. Let none of his words fail. All Israel from Dan even to Beersheba knew that Samuel was confirmed as a prophet of the Lord. And the Lord appeared again at Shiloh, because the Lord revealed himself to Samuel at Shiloh by the word of the Lord. So here begins the beautiful relationship that we see between Samuel and God. Samuel becomes a key piece to everything. So like right now, this would be like under the time of the judges, because there's no king yet in Israel. And so that part will play a bigger role here in just a couple of chapters. One thing that So fast forward a little bit. Eli is past at this point, and we have a battle between the Philistines and the Israelites, which is nothing new. It's something that is constant at this point in time. And the Philistines actually take the Ark of the Covenant. And so that being done, there's a lot of issues here for the Israelites. Like, that's a huge, piece of them. They need to go get that back. And they ultimately do. They get it back to Israel. And they get some deliverance from the Philistines. And so we're going to pick up in 1 Samuel 7, verse 3 is where we're going to pick back up, because that's really a good spot to pick up with Samuel before we get to what we are like aiming to get to set up for next week. So starting in verse 3 of chapter 7. Then Samuel spoke to all the house of Israel, saying, "If you return the Lord with all your heart, remove the foreign gods and the Ashtaroth from among you, and direct your hearts to the Lord and serve him alone. He will deliver you from the hand of the Philistines." Okay, before we go any further, I want you to probably should have said this earlier, but now is as good as time as any. You can pause this if you need to, but what I would like for you to do, you can use your phone, you can use a notepad, a notebook, whatever, but we need to take some notes down because we are going to be going back and forth. So you can title it however you want. I'm going to title this one Samuel Character Study. Okay? And so with this, I'm going to have to wrap this up soon. I'm on a time crunch today. So with this, Samuel, so a couple of things about Samuel that we noticed right away. He is earnest. So you can write that down if you want. And take your own notes too. Don't just write down everything that I say. Set it up however you need to have better understanding for yourself. So earnest, God loving. I would even put zeal, because he does. He has a zeal for God. We just heard that at the end of verse 3. Serve him alone, serving God alone. He will deliver you from the hand of the Philistines. His sole focus is God. Now, I enjoy doing different things and whatnot, but I try my hardest. Do I fail? Absolutely, because I'm human. But I try my hardest to put God at the center of everything. How I'm, functioning in my family, how I'm functioning as a member of the congregation that I attend or worship with, how I do things at my work, how I operate even while cooking, even while I'm filming while cooking. Everything that I do, I try to keep in mind, okay, how can I be that example for somebody else? That way, maybe somebody asks questions. Well, why do you do it this way? Why do you do this? Why do you do that? Whatever. Because one thing that has been said a lot lately, which is weird, like something you pick up on because it's been said so many times, is we might be the only Bible that a person reads. Meaning, okay, I have to be that light, be that example. I have to live it. Because if they see me living it, that's going to stick with them. That can plant a seed, seeing me living it. And living it can mean several different things. And that's why we do character studies, is we can see people living it or even not living it, because we're going to, this season, look at Judas. We're going to look at Peter. Just a couple of people, for examples that we're going to look at. Peter lived it. Judas ended up not living it. But we'll get into more of that later. David, Saul, you're going to see so many different examples of how to do things the right way, how to do things the wrong way. And we do, we as humans, we as people today do a mixture of both. They did a mixture of both. And we'll see that especially with this story of Samuel, Saul, Jonathan, and David. But we need to start wrapping this up and get to the point that I wanted to get to. So the sons of Israel removed the Baals and the Ashtaroth and served the Lord alone. Then Samuel said, "Gather all Israel to Mizpah, and I will pray to the Lord for you." They gathered to Mizpah and drew water and poured it out before the Lord and fasted on that day and said, "There, we have sinned against the Lord." And Samuel judged the sons of Israel at Mizpah. Now when the Philistines heard that the sons of Israel had gathered to Mizpah, the lords of the Philistines went up against Israel, and when the sons of Israel heard it, they were afraid of the Philistines. The sons of Israel said to Samuel, "Do not cease to cry to the Lord our God for us, that he may save us from the hands of the Philistines." Samuel took a suckling lamb and offered it for a whole burnt offering to the Lord. And Samuel cried to the Lord for Israel, and the Lord answered him. Now Samuel was offering up the burnt offering, and the Philistines drew near to battle against Israel. But the Lord thundered with a great thunder on that day against the Philistines, and confused them so that they were routed before Israel. The men of Israel went out of Mizpah and pursued the Philistines and struck them down as far as below Bethkar. Then Samuel took a stone and set it between Mizpah and Shen, and named it Ebenezer, saying, Thus far the Lord has helped us." So the Philistines were subdued, and they did not come any more within the border of Israel. And the hand of the Lord was against the Philistines all the days of Samuel. The cities which the Philistines taken from Israel were restored to Israel from Ekron even to Gath, and Israel delivered their territory from the hand of the Philistines. So there was peace between Israel and the Amorites. Real quick, in your notes, I want you to particularly mark 1 Samuel chapter 7, verse 13. This verse will be particularly handy in the future. So I want you to hold on to that one. Now, to wrap this up, we're going to end at the end of chapter 7. We've got 3 more verses here. Now Samuel judged Israel all the days of his life. He used to go annually on circuit to Bethel, Gilgal, and Mizpah, and he judged Israel in all three places. Then his return was to Ramah, for his house was there, and there he judged Israel, and he built there an altar to the Lord. So currently Samuel is playing judge / prophet, and he's leading them down the right path, like we see in 13. So the Philistines were subdued, and they did not come any more within the border of Israel, and the hand of the Lord was against the Philistines all the days of Samuel. Samuel is like their guiding light. He is helping keep them on the right path. He is like that guy that is like, do not stray from God's word. Let's worship God. They get rid of all the idols, and they are set on the right path. One man can change a nation. As crazy as that sounds, because like, even in our modern day society and everything, it takes a bunch of political figures to do something, and like that's what we see. But one person can set an example for so many people. That's the takeaway that I want you to get, is one man can set an example for so many people. This is a perfect place to stop. That sets us up very well to begin looking at the relationship next week between Saul and Samuel. And so we've made some good notes. We've got a good base for where we're going to go from here. Thank you so much for spending some time with me looking at God's Word. Happy Thursday, and we will see you back here again on Calloused Hands.